I think the main thing is for people to realize that the person most affected by a pregnancy is the pregnant person. And therefore, the pregnant person should be able to decide what to do.
Welcome to Bitch Talk. I'm your host, Erin.
And I'm co-host Ange, aka Captain Party.
2026 brings us into our 13th year of podcasting, and we're proud to be here. Thank you to our followers and longtime listeners for voting us Best of the Bay Best Podcast for 3 years in a row, and to SF Film for adding us to the respected list of essential SF winners.
If this is your first time listening, where the hell have you been? But better late than never. We're like if the rap group Salt and Peppa met the show Grace and Frankie and had a baby. And if you don't understand what that means, ask Jeeves. And now, on with the show. Clink! Welcome to South by Southwest 2026. Thank you to our festival sponsors, Standard Deviant Brewing and The Tech We Want. In this episode, we're bringing you two documentaries based on stories from the Caribbean, Black Zombie and Scarlet Girls. In the first interview, we're joined by our honorary bitch, John Wildman of Films Gone Wild. Enjoy. Welcome to South by Southwest 2026. We are Erin and Ange with the Bitch Talk podcast, joined by our honorary bitch, John Wildman, editor-in-chief of Films Gone Wild. And in this segment, we're going to talk about Black Zombie. We have our director with us. I'm going to have you introduce yourself, and please introduce your film to our audience.
Hello, thank you for having me. My name is Maya Anik Bedward, and I'm a filmmaker, and I recently made the film Black Zombie, which is about the most misunderstood monster of our time, the zombie. And it's looking at how the zombie, the flesh-eating monster we all know, actually has its roots and origins in Haiti and is a Haitian voodoo metaphor for slavery.
It's a great film. I'm a big fan of the film, and I'm a genre person myself. And what I love about it is such a thoughtful examination of all of the roots of the zombie. And I'm someone, I have a gore room in my house, and I have this thing, it's like a brain, and it has all the different offshoots of where zombie stuff has come from. So to take from White Zombie, that classic film, all the way to the base is just a wonderful thing. I would love for you to talk about almost how you whittled it down to what you did. Because you could have had a miniseries, frankly, because, when you go into, obviously, the voodoo Haitian origins to the whole universe that George Romero created, talk about basically, once you got in that editing bay with all of your footage and a few terabytes of, how did you then go, okay, let's narrow this focus so people just don't get lost in Zombieland?
Yeah, it was a huge challenge. There's so much to talk about and so many directions you could go in. I think when I first made this film, it was always clear to me that I really wanted to center the voice of Haitian voodoo practitioners. So I started, the story, and the story is very much about how the zombie has been used to demonize Haitian and voodoo and Black culture. And that's kind of the guide that, helps me decide what films to look at and what films not to look at. And I also knew I wanted to very much talk about how the Haitian Revolution and its erasure is a big part of the story, and how that fits into the zombie narrative, which giving space for that, was definitely going to reduce the amount of space I could talk about more the evolution of the zombie in terms of its use in Hollywood and literature. But yeah, it was a huge challenge. The edit was really hard. But I always knew that White Zombie was going to be an integral film to look at because it's the first zombie film that Hollywood made. And for sure, Night of the Living Dead, even though that's often seen as where the zombie really pivots and becomes something else, I think its connection to civil rights, the fact that it had a Black lead, all these pieces just like really played into the overall message and story I wanted to tell. So that was always an important piece too. And yeah, Serpent and the Rainbow, I think that might be the one where people, a lot of people who aren't as familiar with zombies might be like, oh, where did this film come from? But I don't know. As I started to pitch the film and talk to people, often if I would tell them and they knew a little bit about its connection to Haiti, they couldn't really expand on it. But they knew there was like a puffer fish involved and some powder and, and I was like, oh, this is all coming from that Serpent and the Rainbow book, like that Wade Davis book, or the movie that came after it, which just was horrific. So that to me was very clearly an important part to tell, because I think for a lot of us now, if anyone does know a little bit about the connection of Haiti and Haitian Vodou to the zombie, it's through that film, and I wanted to really kind of extrapolate that and talk more about that.
I'm glad you brought up The Serpent and the Rainbow, because the author was questioned in the film, and I quote him saying, I just simply moved on. And I want to talk about the privilege of that statement and why none of us should ever just simply move on.
Yeah, I mean, I think that statement is a really, it really sheds light on people coming in for their own purposes, whether it's like anthropological or it's like you're a filmmaker. It's like, I think Zandashe says it so well. It's like, what are your intentions? Like, why are you making and creating the images or writing the books you are? And although Wade Davis, starts from this place, I really just wanted to show what voodoo, how it has been misrepresented. Just a lot of the actions afterwards don't really add up. And I think, Haiti right now, things are so dire there, and very few people know about that. We were really lucky to have the voodoo priest in the film, Héros Josué, join us for the premiere, and we flew him from Port-au-Prince, or he had to take a helicopter to get to Cap-Haïtien, to then get a plane to Turks. He had to basically travel for 48 hours to get here because things are just so difficult. The gangs have closed the airport. He was telling me about so many places we shot in that have been burnt down since we were there. So much erasure is happening right now in the culture in the country of Haiti, and no one knows about this. No one talks about this. And this is just a result of years and years and years of exploitation and erasure and the reparations that Haiti had to pay to France and the impoverishment that happened afterwards. This is the result of all this. It's still happening now. It continues. It's affecting everyone who I interviewed in the film on daily, and no one knows. And then to say I just simply moved on, it's it's insane to me. Anyway.
Mm-hmm. No, thank you so much for this film. Learned a lot. I'm always coming away from films like this and wow, we just really got bamboozled in our education system in terms of what we know and what we don't know. And there's a lot of what we don't know. So thank you. But can you talk about Errol some more? And I loved the end credits with him and how moving that part of the film is.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. Yeah. So Héros Josué is really well known in Haiti. He's the head of the center, the Bureau de Ethnographie. He does a lot of work around culture in Haiti. He's also an artist himself, a musician, and a voodoo priest. And he's just so poetic about how all these things play in his life. And it's so funny, when I first went to Haiti, I knew I wanted him to be in the film, and we were trying to connect with him, and he's not always he's a bit elusive. And so we literally rocked up to the bureau that he works at, this beautiful garden space, hoping we would run into him, but he wasn't in town that day. But he heard we had come and kind of tried to find him. And for years we were trying to get in touch with him, and we had contacts. We're yeah, just call Era. And we're trying. And, it was a dream for me to have him in the film. And unfortunately, when we were going to go back and shoot a lot of the cultural elements, when we had our budget, and the president had been assassinated in Haiti, and things had just like really fallen into turmoil and had become very dangerous. And even Jacmel, where we had been shooting, which has always been a really safe city to be in, like was dangerous. Like this was shocking to Gregory, who's in the film as well. He's like, this city is always kind of like protected from like, you know, a lot of the stuff that pops off in Port-au-Prince. But he's like, even in Jacmel, it's really dangerous right now. And so I made the call that, okay, we can't come and bring a camera in the street right now. It's just going to be put everyone in jeopardy. My Haitian crew, our contributors, we would just be a target. So we decided to film in the Dominican Republic, which was a hard choice for us because of the politics around the DR. But we found an amazing Afro-Dominican team who like really cared about the message of the film and understood like how important it was to make sure that our contributors and crew were protected and cared for, because the government is just so violent and aggressive against these groups. So like they helped us bring everyone to the Dominican Republic. And Errol was set to come, and then there was a hurricane and his flight got canceled, and like he couldn't go to the main airport because of the gangs. Like all it was like, but he made it. He made it a week later. And we had this like space booked. It's an old sugarcane mill. So a site of a lot of like horrific things that have happened, a very powerful site. And I thought we could do something interesting there. And he's like, yeah, I'll come. We'll figure it out. And we didn't know what to expect. Like we didn't even have our DP there at that time. Like my boyfriend shot it. And with, also, I should say, Tranquiline was there, though. He was like an incredible camera operator that had joined us throughout this whole journey from Jacmel as well. So it was Tranquiline and my boyfriend, and they just set up cameras, and Errol just started. And it was the most amazing thing we've ever seen. And the sun's setting, and of course we can't control the sun, so we're losing the sun. And then he just like works with it and works with the candle, and just like, I would love to post the full performance because it's just so incredible. And it was just magic that he created for us. And I'm very grateful we were able to capture that and put it in the film. He's incredible.
It's powerful.
As filmmakers, we can't now, unless of course you're a trust fund baby or you're funded by a studio, we can't just make films blindly as artists. We have to think business-wise as well. And so I'm curious how much calculation you had in your head as you're making this, because this could have been strictly a brilliant social political film, or it could have been strictly a fun look at the origins of a horror trope and theme that's beloved by this point. But you did both, which I thought you did very, very well. But also, what I thought was what was interesting about it is that from a business calculation, you go by incorporating the horror aspect of it. That helps on the business front because that audience is so loyal and so hungry to see anything like that, whereas a brilliant social political film may not have the same wide open arms ready to embrace it. So were you just going I'm making my film and then we'll find out what the hell happens afterwards? Or were you going, no, we really do need to do this because this is the interest level is going to be good if we have this aspect?
I always from the start knew that the pop culture horror aspect of the film was going to bring attention to the actual story I wanted to tell. And that's why this project was so interesting to me, is that I knew that I would be able to bring more awareness to the story about the erasure of the Haitian Revolution and the denigration of like voodoo and Black culture in our society. But it was very hard balance to strike, definitely. Like often, it felt like we were trying to tell two different types of stories. And it was interesting, like when I first started on the film, I wondered if the genre audience would be into this film, like because it was going to be so critical of the zombie and this figure that everyone loves. But then I started pitching it at genre events. Like I went to the Fantasia Frontière Market, and everyone was so, like you said, excited about the project, hungry for the project, and I was like really taken aback. And I'm like, okay, no, audiences, like this is a time for like socially elevated genre. Like people want this, so this is great. Like I feel like it'll be, it'll get the platform it needs. But definitely in the creation of it, it was like a hard balance to strike where and especially because like the point of the film is to say the zombie is like this very small, like adjacent thing to Haitian. It's not really, it really doesn't have much to do with Vodou at all, but it's the conflation of it that's like perpetuated this like horrific representation of Vodou and Black spirituality in our media. And so it's like I'm trying to tell that story while also telling the story of the zombie. And so that was always like a thing I had to balance. Like, how do I talk about the evolution, which has a lot of really socially important things to it? Talk about the evolution of the zombie, but also make sure people understand that Vodou isn't zombies. And so that was that was a challenging part for sure.
Well, you did it beautifully. Thank you so much for this powerful film. Unfortunately, we have to wrap, but before we go, we have a segment called This Bitch, and we give our guests an opportunity to shine a light on someone or something that is bringing them joy, or throw shade at someone or something that's pissing them off. So who is your This Bitch of the moment?
Oh, man. Okay, I'm going to shed light on someone who... I want to spotlight that I worked with on this project, Mambo Marie Lebel. From like when I pitched her the project, she, from the minute I pitched it to her, was 100% on board. And through the entire making of the film, whenever I'd ask her for her feedback or her thoughts on things, she was like there so much for it, so much for this project. She's an amazing woman based in Montreal who's really about demystifying Vodou and telling people, what it really is and practicing it in her community. And yeah, Mambo la Belle Déesse, I'm so grateful for her and she's awesome.
Thank you so much, Maya. It's been an honor to talk to you about this really powerful film, Black Zombie, having its world premiere at South by Southwest. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome to South by Southwest 2026. In this segment, we're talking about the film Scarlet Girls, which is having its North American premiere in the global section of the documentary feature category. We're sitting down with director Paula Curi. Welcome to Bitch Talk.
Thank you so much for having me.
Can you introduce your film to our audience?
So Scarlet Girls is a film that portrays women's experiences with abortion and forced motherhood in the Dominican Republic.
This film's pretty heavy, I would say, but I really appreciate all the stories that were shared, and I just want you to talk about the access, the trust, and the care that you give to all the stories. And these are stories of violence against girls. So can you talk about just how that all came together and how it was presented in this film?
Of course. So also to mention that in the Dominican Republic, abortion is completely criminalized. So we have no exceptions there. And when this film has been 5 years in the making approximately, and in 2021, it was being discussed in Congress whether to approve the 3 exceptions of abortion, which are in the case of rape or incest, if the pregnant person is at risk, or if there is inviability with the pregnancy, right? Mm-hmm. So during that time, we launched an open call online, and we got more than 100 responses in 24 hours.
Wow.
So that already tells you that women really want to talk about this. And it was overwhelming, the response. So from there, we conducted several interviews, and then we just narrowed down which ones we felt had made the most sense to have in the film.
So it's one thing to find the women or girls that want to speak to you about their experiences, but then you have families also participating in the film. Can you talk about getting their families on board and maybe some stories you couldn't tell because they didn't want to, or it adds another level of complication, right? And intimacy and trust gaining.
Yes, I would say that most of the stories in the film are the women themselves talking. However, we do have one case where the person who tells the story is the mother of a 16-year-old girl who was called Esperancita. And she passed away because she was diagnosed with leukemia in a time when she had a pregnancy in the first trimester. However, doctors refused to give her treatment, and they also refused to perform an abortion because, as we know, it is illegal. So what happened is that she got complications from the disease, and she ended up passing away, and of course, so did the fetus. And since then, her mother, Rosa Hernandez, has become one of the most important spokespersons on the right to have an abortion, especially within the 3 exceptions.
Yeah. Can you tell our audience, because I like that there's 2 tracks of storytelling going on, and a lot of it does have to do with what you were talking about before about the laws. It was incredible to hear that the history of abortion laws haven't changed since 1884. I want people to settle in with that. But and that they're the most restrictive laws. So can you talk about telling that part of the story in this film?
Yeah, I felt it was really vital to have the faces of the persons who were discussing this legislation, because they're the ones who have the power whether to approve this or not, whether to change the course of women's lives or not. So throughout the film, we see these little snippets of the people in Congress, some of the people who are supporting the legislation and some of the people who are against it and their reasoning for it. And I think that's a very important layer, because we see everything that's going on, even though the main focus of the film is more sensory and about the stories of women themselves. But that was very, very important to provide some context.
Yeah, on top of that, it's also very beautifully shot, hauntingly slow at times. Can you talk about the style of the film and how it's such a sensitive topic? Obviously, you don't want to sensationalize. There's just this line of like getting just the right tone.
Yeah, I think on one hand, I think film is an art, right? Sometimes we can forget about that, but I think that because it is an art, I think every artist kind of has their own style that is inherent to them. So I believe there's some of that as to why the film looks the way it looks. But at the same time, I think as a team, we made a lot of decisions on what everything meant symbolically. There is a reason behind every color, every composition, every like the production design behind everything. And I think that the beauty is a consequence of all of those decisions that we made as a team. And that's why I think it looks so poetic, right? And especially because we wanted to highlight the emotional part of all of this. I think that usually when we speak on abortion, there's a lot of emotions from the, let's say, anti-abortion people, but kind of in a sensationalist way, right? And I think that the position that is more pro-abortion, usually, since it's the logical side, right, it only stays in the logical side. And I wanted to be able to dig into the emotional side as well of that. Like, what does a woman feel in this position? What is it like for a girl in this position? So that is part of the objective too.
As you show this film outside of the Dominican Republic, and you're coming to South by Southwest, and you're in Texas, which is pretty restrictive as well, what do you want people to walk away with when they see this film? And maybe what are some of the calls to action that you want people to do after seeing this?
I think the main thing is for people to realize that the person most affected by a pregnancy is the pregnant person. And therefore, the pregnant person should be able to decide what to do. They are at the center of this conversation, because whether a woman has an abortion today has no impact on a third person who maybe has different beliefs. It literally does not impact them. They won't even know it happened. So I think the main takeaway is that, to remember who has to have the decision in this case, and how women's lives are negatively impacted by the severe legislation as well.
Yeah, really beautiful job. Well done. So grateful to all of these very brave women for sharing their story. Before we wrap, we end each segment with something we call This Bitch. And it's your chance, Paula, to shine a light on someone that is bringing you joy or throw shade at someone or something that's making you angry. So who is your This Bitch of the moment?
Ooh. I think my bitch of the moment, this is the first thing that popped up. Does it have to be a female?
It can be
No,
anything.
okay, whatever you want.
No.
Well, I saw Javier Bardem's talk last night.
We haven't seen it yet.
Okay. So speaking, or let's say denouncing the genocide in Palestine. So that was really amazing. And I felt very inspired after seeing that.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Again, we've been speaking with director Paula Curi of the film Scarlet Girls. Congratulations and thank you for sharing these stories.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us on today's show. You can find more information about this episode in our show notes.
If you're missing us, you can visit us at bitchtalkpodcast.com to sign up for our newsletter and buy us a cup of coffee.
Did you know we're also on the radio? You can find us at bff.fm.
And lastly, rate and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. All the cool bitches are doing it.